Perfect. I hope you're ready for this.
Ha.
I am.
Nice. Good, good.
All right. Let's read your bio and let's get going, shall we? Because we just got too much to talk about.
All right, let's fire it up.
Hey, it's
Justice.
Andrea. Welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today, I have with me my longtime friend, Dustin Black.
Hello, good morning, good morning.
For over 25 years, Dustin has helped organizations of all sizes articulate their identity and implement result driving strategies. Working with Fortune 100 companies and startups alike, he's learned brand success comes from alignment, clarity, and consistency, not budget size. I believe he says that he believes every organization deserves a powerful brand, not just those with massive resources. Dustin, it's
Good
finally
morning.
here.
Hello, glad to be here. Excited to chat with you. Live a few states apart at this point, but doesn't seem like it's been a few years, but appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, we're going to get personal and professional here because
Oh my.
I have an actual picture of two cribs where you're in one and I'm in the other.
What? Look at that.
Yes. Like we have been friends for a
Like
very, very long time.
a whole 25 years ago.
Yeah,
Wild.
exactly. Exactly. And I have so many memories with you and your family and like yeah. So when I first started this podcast 8.5 years ago, I was like, who do I want to talk to? Well, I want to talk to Dustin. And it's been a long time coming. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you're here.
No, that's right. Thank you. Very, very excited to chat. And yeah, hopefully people will get something out of this. The wide-ranging group of topics we'll cover.
Yeah, definitely. Can you start by just kind of giving us an idea of like how did you move? Like, how did you get to where you're at now? Like, what's been the career journey for you that you want to share
Yeah.
with us?
So, huh, I grew up in central Nebraska, like you said, went to college at University of Nebraska, double majored in art and advertising, and ended up coming up here to Minneapolis right after graduation. But it's kind of crazy. There's like a few fortuitous moments that I look back at and kind of have like pivotal points in my career. One of them was my move up to Minneapolis, and I had been accepted. I was going to go to a master's degree out in Virginia at VCU, and I had a roommate. I had everything picked out. I was going out there, and I came up here to interview in Minneapolis and over spring break, and met Bob Thacker. He's an old UNL alumni. Was the CEO at BBDO. And I interviewed with him, and he's like, "You should come work for me up here in Minneapolis." And I was like, "No, I'm going to go to VCU. I've got everything set." And he's like, "Well, you can pay to go to school, or I can pay you to learn the same things. Why don't you think about it? That's not the right answer. Think about it." And so 2 weeks goes by, and I remember this very distinctly. It was a Tuesday, and I was going to call and tell Bob, like, "Thanks, but I'm going to go out there to Virginia." And I got a call from another lady I met with. She's a recruiter at one of the other agencies. And she's like, "Hey, are you still thinking about going to VCU?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, I've been thinking about you. She goes, I got a bunch of books from VCU, and they're not very good. You need to move to Minneapolis." And on a dime, I was like, "All right, that's a sign from the universe pushing me north." So canceled all the VCU stuff, called Bob pretty much as soon as I put the phone down and said I'll take the job, and moved up here, and kind of thought I'd be up here for 2, 3 years most. But eventually met my wife, started having kids, and the dreams of the coast disappeared. But Minneapolis is great. It's a really good, vibrant art community. We have access to all the outdoors and all the city stuff, and it's kind of easy to get to both coasts for just a couple hour plane rides. So I've enjoyed it. And at this point, I've now lived in Minnesota longer than I lived in Nebraska. So
You're
uh,
Minnesotan now.
kind of call myself a Minnesotan.
Do
Yep,
you ever
yep.
still call yourself Nebraskan?
Not, not,
Not very
not
often.
very
Not
often.
very
No.
often. That's fair. Uh, how did you pick advertising? So like you're one of the I will say you're one of the most creative people that I know.
We got to get
You
you to meet
really
more
are.
people. We got to get.
No, you really are.
Oh, thank
And
you.
um not just that, like um well, like I remember when we were in high school, and I'm totally telling these stories, right?
Of course, you got to go
There's
there.
not going to be this podcast episode without telling some stories, but I like just such a pivotal or not pivotal but like a really special time was when we were doing speech together, and you recruited me to be on this like little speech team where we were doing this what they call an OID or oral interpretation of drama. And you're like I don't know, like I don't know what the character would be to help people understand, but like you were sort of like this mastermind, like the hair's all over the place, like I got all these ideas and we're gonna make this script amazing and it's gonna be so funny. And it was so funny, it was crazy. I felt like I was like just sort of like tagging along, like Dustin's doing this thing and there's like there's some collaboration with some of these other people, but like I felt like I was tagging along on a really really exciting ride. And we ended up you led us straight to the top podium at state.
Yeah, yeah. No, those are fun. Those were good days.
Good
Yeah,
days.
I've always really enjoyed, being around creativity. I really just, uh, if you put probably at the top of my values pyramid, it's, how do we make something interesting or be around creative people or just not do things the normal way. So I think that's kind of been something that's been baked into my DNA, or my folks help, program me from an early age. And when you have that creative spirit, I think it's just as important to have the onus of how to bring people along on the journey,
Yes. Yeah.
because you can't really fulfill any of these visions on your own, so you have to, leadership is just as important as the vision. And so, like you said, recruiting you, like that's, something that early on I realized I was really good at is having ideas, getting excited about it, and then try to like share that enthusiasm or that infectious creativity. And I went through to college. I started off in civil engineering and
Really.
switched to
I don't
mechanical
remember that.
engineering because I was really good at math. Like I got like, I
Yeah.
don't know what, like a 34 or 35 or something on my ACT or something ridiculous. And like, I was like, I'm really good at math. I'm going to do that. But I have a very much like a systems mind, or like very much like things have a certain order and a place. But I very quickly realized like these aren't my people, like the infectious creativity wasn't there. And so I switched over to architecture thinking, oh, this is going to scratch that itch. And just the professors, and you could just tell from the people, they were just really drugged down by really long processes. And whatever, they're drawing restrooms for 9 years of their career, in some gas station or something. And so I just could tell that wasn't the speed of creativity I wanted. And I had someone live 2 floors above me. I can't even remember her name. I wish I would, because I've told those stories a few times before. But she got into advertising, and I'm still pretty competitive. And I was like, well, I can do that. I can do that better than you. Like if you think you can do advertising, like let me show you. And I just found that was kind of my rhythm of like, oh, it pulls my art, it pulls my creativity. It's at a speed and a pace, but I get to surround myself with creative people. And then, there's budgets to make this happen. So it was like a constant, like, okay, and I'm using somebody else's money to sort of like make weird things come to life. Because I've always, part of that systems is tied to like a business acumen, and so there's just like I like seeing, businesses succeed. I like seeing people's visions come to life, and advertising was an outlet for that. And advertising itself, and as I got into the creative field, I started off as an art director, and you kind of work your way up. Like that leadership quality really quickly becomes very important, because you need to have an idea. And I do really still believe that like a spark, like a spark of creativity truly happens from one person. Like someone has to make a really weird connection or have like a really weird start of an idea. But then the onus is on you then to like, flame that spark and get more people involved. The proverbial campfire happens, when a lot of people throw their wood onto it. And so we have to like take that spark and get other people excited about it and have them see the vision and then bring their expertise to build that fire together. Because in advertising and particularly lately, it's gotten so complex that you can't solve a problem with one person. Like, I need your background, I need your diverse thinking, I need your expertise, and I need yours, and I need to now make you all feel like you're part of this vision, and I need to have you have ownership in the idea. And yeah, so it's just something I've really enjoyed. And I think because advertising is so short, like we're always working on five or six things at once, and sometimes something goes south, and that's all right. I got a meeting this afternoon with something that's going well, and so it kind of just allows you to have that constant speed of trying and bringing weird things into the world.
Hmm. Okay, so you answered a lot right there, but I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to tap into with you, your expertise and experience is just leading creatives
Yeah.
because they're quite the unruly group and exciting. And yet also I'm sure there's probably at least for me, I know that there's times when I feel like my idea is part of who I am. And so
Yeah.
if you reject my idea, you're rejecting me and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So like, how do you even know that that spark, that connection that somebody made is actually worth pursuing? Like it's a good one. How do you even know?
Uh, I think that there's a bit of a craft or a bit of just like an eye that you kind of just innately understand what's a good idea or what's like that the bone of the idea. Like I often use the phrase like, hey, you got to understand what's bone and what's fat. And, you got to keep your vision, you got to keep the structure aligned, and you got to like know what you're aiming towards, but you got to give and take, and you got to let people participate, and you got to like, make concessions along the way, because if it's your way or the highway, you don't get people to buy in, so you have to find ways to like give ownership away or make them feel a part of it.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's exciting about a big idea is if it's big, people get excited about it very quickly, because a lot of times, people don't feel like they're creative, or they maybe not be they innately understand they're not a spark person, but man, they're a great builder, or man, they're really great at like organizing that idea, or man, they're great at telling the world about it, or they're really great at making it look pretty or whatever. So it's just really recognizing like what your strength is, and as a leader, you try to like figure out what those strengths are and figure out how to feed each of them. So as you as an employee, it's on you to know what you're good at and where your weak spots are. As a leader, it's important to kind of get to know that team so that you can take that idea and feed it out. And you'll know. And I think advertising part of it is like you got to get a thick skin quickly. I often say, people ask me like, what's your superpower? Like, what's your greatest strength? And it must be creativity. And I firmly think in advertising, it's resiliency. It's just the ability to like move on. And you will get beat up and it will feel personal for a while and you will get rejected. And, we speak a lot about, be hard on the idea, be kind on the person,
Okay.
so like when
Yeah.
we're talking about an idea, we're talking about a goal, we're talking about a vision, and that's what I use to align my conversations. I'm not talking about you. Like, let's talk about you and what your personal goals are and how we can get you there. But the goal of this idea, or it even works with organizations, right? Like, let's put a North Star on the wall of what success looks like for this company, and then that success metrics is what we can use to judge different things. So it's not me and you personally disagreeing. It's like, no, 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 like that's our goal. Is what you're doing in alignment with that goal? Is what we're doing in alignment to that goal? And if not, we can talk about it, but it's not, I'm not personally attacking you. I'm just saying expectations are that third party up on the wall, and
Mhm.
that becomes the North Star of the conversation.
I love that. I mean, we talk about externalizing in conflict, we talk about externalizing the problem. So it's not you versus me, it's us versus the problem. But like in this situation, it's not necessarily a problem, but it's an idea.
Yeah.
And so it's not like your idea or my idea. It's like the idea that's going to serve the purpose.
And you're always like, we're constantly like, what's the goal? You always are reminding people, I love this phrase I heard once, but it's like a lot of times you get into it and you just feel like it's hard. And we're sitting here building, like we're putting bricks down every day. We're building a boring sidewalk, and it's like, no, 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 we're building a castle. Like, so this bricklaying is actually building something much bigger than us. And so it's kind of reminding them of the bigger goal. It's keeping them inspired to that external, like, hey, we can be great. We put it on the wall. We're going to be great.
Mm.
And framing things through that lens. When you talk about conflict, that's, the old school of conflict is it's not me versus you. It's we're talking about the third place we're going. It's this, reminding ourselves, here's where we're going, and keeping that in focus. Because as soon as you make it a you versus me or my idea versus your idea, like it's you're not going to get anywhere. So it's constantly judoing. But at the heart of it, and this is where I get back to creatives, is like you got to know what the heart of the idea is, and then you got to like, give or take, or have a hard conversation with like, if we make this change, it's not the idea. And as an advertiser, you're risking being in the sea of sameness. It's probably more risky to be boring than it is to actually have, a splashier or riskier idea.
Hmm.
So you kind of have to just have that conversation sometimes because, sometimes they do try to cut the bone.
What do people who think really linearly need to know about creatives?
I mean, I definitely think there's a few things there, I think, right? Like, I think linear people have creativity, right? Like, I
Love that.
don't like the labels of like creative, not creative or whatever, right? Like, everybody
Yeah.
has to solve all sorts of problems through creative ways, whether it's juggling schedules, budgets, like, how do I do conflict resolution or whatever? That's a creative solution. So it's not as much, I don't think, about like, hey, uh, I'm not creative, I'm linear, therefore I have to like figure you out. Like, it's building that bridge between let's find creative solutions together. It's using their language. Like a lot of times, like linear, like they like waterfall, they like process, they like gates. And so you can, as a creative, kind of slip into their world a little bit, right? Like, cool, like here are the gates we're gonna have, or here's the things we're gonna like help you, make them feel comfortable with a little bit of their language. Because I think we all have worked with those type of linear people, and um, so you inspire them to be creative, you start to use their language. Uh, and I think, and that's where like the idea of having like that castle, like we're building a castle, or hey, on the wall, that's the goal. Having that third party thing keeps you both aligned, right? So like whenever there's conflict or whenever there's just like misalignment, you remind them that hey, we might have different ways of working, but we're still working for the same goal. Here's the why behind what we're doing. So lead with the why, lead with the vision, and remind and inspire to that vision.
Hmm.
And I think like to personal, like my personal example of that is like, I think at the top of like, why do you exist? Like I like this idea of, whatever, being involved in creativity or bringing creative things in the world. But right underneath that, like I would put, and I wrote this out a few years ago, but like I want to be part of a financially stable organization that develops careers using creativity. So for me, that's like a North Star of like the type of job I want. So it's not about working at the sexiest agency. It's not about making the most money. It's not about winning awards or whatever. And as I go to develop and lead, an agency, that's also like what I would put up there and say, like the organization, this is what we believe. This is what we're trying to do as an organization, is we're going to be financially stable, develop careers, and use creativity. So that means we're going to have a wide range of clients, so that we're diverse in our portfolio. It means, we're gonna make hard decisions when we need to, but it's in the behest of having a financially stable company. It means we're going to celebrate good times and be honest about bad times. Like financially stable has certain, acumen behind it. Develop careers is like I care about you. Like let's meet, let's talk. Like where you want to be. Maybe it's here, maybe it's not. I always use the analogy of not the analogy, but I bristle at the idea of like we're a family. Like no, 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 we're a team. Because a team sets goals, a team holds each other accountable. A team really is hey, I need you to do better because I want to win, you know? And that team mentality is like, so let's develop our careers. And you might be on this team, it might be another team sometime later, like whatever. I'm not going to feel bad about it if you use this as a springboard to get to your next team. So, but I want to help you develop your career so you're getting to better teams. And then, through creativity, like we're all creative. So like, what's your, linear thinker? How do we pull out creativity? Uh, how do I develop and use creativity to solve problems and inspire people? And so that allows us to have that goal and that third sort of thing that's out there. So when I'm doing reviews or I'm having conversations, I can sit there and be like, hey, I don't know if, are you holding up your end of the bargain here? Are you developing your career? Are you being creative enough? Or hey, we're on lean times, but we need to be financially stable, and that means this and this or whatever. So,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate that we're a team, not necessarily a family thing. Families are
yeah,
kind
the
of mixed
family
up
thing is you
sometimes.
hear that all the time, right? And I bristle because it's not like I got to deal with family regardless,
Yeah.
and I don't like that's not healthy for a business environment. Like if somebody is, not performing, they're dragging everybody down. And so it's just best if you like have that conversation and say like, you're obviously not happy here. Let's find a place for you. I kind of whenever I do a review or when I talk to people, I was like, there's a scale, and it's what you're providing to the company and what the company's providing to you. And you kind of want to keep those in balance. It's like there's pay, there's opportunities. That's what we're giving you. You're giving me your time, your creativity, your energy. And I'm developing your career, and hopefully that's in balance. But as soon as one side starts to feel like it's out of balance or out of whack, then we kind of have to talk. Like there's an adjustment that we can do, or maybe it's just out of whack and you're on like the team isn't right for you right now, and that's totally fine. But it's better that you leave and find where you're going to be happy than to force this, into, like we don't have to force it, whereas a family you do force it, or a family like you have a different conversation. You don't, hey, go find a new family, whatever. You're not happy here. So it doesn't work that way. I need to be, going back to the goal of the company, we're going to be growing. So I need you to do your part and the team's going to start winning.
Mm. Where do you feel like you learned these lessons? Did you have a lot of this innately? Did, you know, mentors along the way? Like, where do you think?
No, it's it's I don't think anybody innately, picks up. I think it's just little bits and pieces, like uh I got a little backpack full of nuggets that I've just picked up from different people along the way and sort of like spun my own little story out of it.
Sure. Yeah. Um, okay. So one of the things that I think is difficult is when somebody creates something and feels like it's theirs versus collaborating to create something that there's shared ownership, or you're giving it a, it's going someplace else. And I just picture advertising, the teams that you lead, whatever you're doing, to be so collaborative. And I'm curious how ego plays into that kind of environment.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has an ego, and so like it's tough, and you have to, dealing with humans, I think in any organization requires balancing that. Um, I think it's keeping people aligned with the goals and helping them understand when and where to care. I love, we talk about like picking up little bits and pieces. One of my good friends, she's a GCD at the place I used to work, Megan, and she'd always say like, I know just, or how she phrase it, I give just the right amount of fucks. And like that was great because it's like she knows when to lean in and care and go deep, and then she knows when to back out and let like her emotions sort of like, no, 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 this is not the battle worth fighting or whatever. And I think that's like a skill that gets learned over time. It's not something that I think initially when you get into the business or when you're young, like your ego is probably a little sharper or a little more like every battle seems like worth fighting. Whereas the longer you're in your career, the more it's like there's going to be opportunities tomorrow, or I think we can judo this, so this probably isn't going to be that big of a deal. And you know, not, your first TV shoot is a really big deal, but after you've been on 100 of them, then you just like everything just you know right what level to give. And I think that's exactly where you have to just help people sort of like where are they in their career, where are they in this like passion and ego. So it's helping them see the goal, helping them understand, you can't do this alone. helping them people feel excited about their strength and bringing it to the table, while keeping a clear vision. But it's hard and sometimes it gets, contentious and there's definitely stomp outs and there's definitely like, people crying in the bathroom that you have to circle back and be like, look, again, we're talking about the work and not you. So let's figure out how to align. But I do also think that's where people crave people crave leadership, like in the sense of like clear vision.
Mm,
And I think that does a lot, right? I think that in a vacuum of leadership, swirl happens and egos get hurt more because there's just less of a clear sense of purpose and where we're going. So I think the more like creative leaders I've seen that have been successful are confident and have a clear vision. And that kind of helps sweep up a lot of the like second guessing and a lot of the like, you know, people that are, gonna get into that swirl and that like headspace of, being hurt. So it's, and that doesn't mean to say you bowl over people. Like I think management has changed a lot from where it was 10, 15 years ago. Our relationship with employees has changed dramatically. And how you manage people is very different. But that's where it's that much more important. You build that muscle of how do you bring people in? How do you how do you inspire them? How do you share that collaborative vision?
hmm
Because leadership doesn't mean it's my way or the highway and this is what we're doing. Leadership means we got a vision. We're going to make decisions. I'm going to listen to you. I want to make sure you feel heard. I'm going to repeat back to you what you said. I'm going to think about what you said. I'm going to take some of what you said sometimes. And, a lot of times as a leader too, you make a big deal out of that. Like, that's a great idea. We're going to do that. And then four or five ideas, you're like, no, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. Whatever. But it's making sure like, no, 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 we are listening at the right one. Um, Very side tangential story, but we shot MSNBC out in New York with Spike Lee. And I really enjoyed working with him. Like
That's crazy.
he didn't connect with us like personally. Like I've had directors that like you go out and get drinks with or whatever. It was nothing like that. But professionally, what I really liked about him is he was intense at listening to what you were saying. And he would come up to him with a question or a problem or whatever. And he would be, and he'd listen and you would literally, he was like, and then like half the time, he'd be like, no, no, and sometimes he would explain why the no, and sometimes it would just be no. But then every now and then, like I remember once distinctly, we were filming the Chris Matthews spot, and it's supposed to be a 360 on, or not 360, like a 180 on Chris Matthews, where it's gonna be him sitting, and we're gonna go around him with a dolly, and they were setting up the track uh on the wrong side of Chris, I think. Like it just visually wasn't great. So I went over to Spike and I said, "Hey, Spike," I said, we're setting it up on the wrong side. I go, "I think you got a much better shot from the other side." And Spike just kind of like, "Yep. Move it, everybody." And he just like and it was great. And it was like for me as someone who was under him, like his creative vision, I felt very heard because there were times like that where he could tell he was like, "Yep, we're gonna do that," and it got better. And then there were times when he was just like, "Cool, I hear you, but nope, we're gonna," and I, kind of was like, "Great, you got a vision, we're gonna do it."
Oh, I mean, great story. Amazing experience. And so true. Like knowing that you're being heard one way or the other, even like it makes it a little easier to stomach if you know you're being taken seriously.
Yeah, yeah, you're being heard, and that's all it is. It's just making sure people are heard and not being dismissed. And you can't have a tracker. It can't be 100 to 0 or whatever. And so that's that part of making people feel like they're a part of the process. And it's I train juniors when they go on their first shoot. I'm an art director, so one of the art director's responsibility on a commercial is to pick the wardrobe. And some people get very, art directors get very involved in the wardrobe or whatever. But one of my best tips for juniors is like let the client pick the wardrobe. Let them make that decision because it's a very early decision. It's very inconsequential. Like, you give them four things. Go back there with wardrobe. You pick out four things that you think would work, and then you bring them back there and you make them pick. and they will feel on top of the world. They will feel like they're being listened, that they have a role, and then you and then you sit them down in Video Village, and but that just right off the bat, having that, like, I know this is not something that's gonna like make or break the spot, but it makes them feel part of it, makes our conversation for the next 3 days that much easier.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah, love that. Can we talk about AI? Like how do you see things changing in advertising and branding in the next, few years? I mean, what are your thoughts on how this is all playing out? How to use it when not to?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I think all white collar jobs are probably going through the same existential crisis. Our
Yep.
business is definitely getting ravaged by it. And there's a lot of the tech leaders are basically saying this is bigger than the internet. And I do think that's probably true.
Mhm.
Um, it AI will not destroy creativity, um, but it will make a lot more junk faster. Uh, an agency of 100 might suddenly be an agency of 60 or 50, with AI tools. So like from a human capital, it's going to be less. And we're already seeing that. There's reports coming out that, people under 25 are getting hired at the shortest rate they've ever been because an AI is like a really great junior writer, or even a junior art director. So, that the funnel, the pipeline getting into our business is hard. But at the end of the day, AI is really only, it's a brilliant editor. It's a brilliant synthesizer of things it's seen. It is not something that creates original ideas. It does not understand the human condition in a way that it can pull an insight out of why we exist and, how a product plays into it. Like it doesn't, there's no original thought from AI. It can scattershot a bunch of stuff, like give me random ideas, but it doesn't exactly know which one resonates very well. And so, from our perspective in our business, it's going to help us it's going to synthesize data on the upfront way faster. We're going to be able to have AI focus groups that we feed information to and get, average opinions and get insights out of. On the generative front, and it will help us create content faster. We can version faster. The back end data and how we put ads out and how we measure is going to get faster and get less people. But at the heart of, creativity and how we connect amongst humans, AI has got a long ways to go in terms of bridging that gap of like this doesn't feel real, this doesn't feel like a human idea yet. And I think we're at the beginning stages of it's getting to get worse, I think, before it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we got Zuckerberg and stuff saying like, next year they're going to launch an AI ad agency, and it's basically like give us your business objective and your budget, and we'll make it happen. But it does that through tonnage. It does that through like, yeah, I'm just going to brute force put out 1 million ads, and 1% will buy. And we're seeing this as a reaction to like social and D2C. They very much are in this like, if I just tell you my product and if I just put it out there enough and the algorithm, like enough people will find it and they'll pay attention. So that just shouting influencery tonnage, I think, is going to continue to go up. But we're already starting to see a little bit of like Google is, um, they don't like the slop, and they're kind of starting to like move the algorithm more towards like human creation and human ideas and more like original ideas.
Mm.
So my personal hope is, while we're probably on the upswing of AI tonnage, there will be a point when like, no, 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 we're going to start rewarding more original ideas and rewarding, real-ish people,
Ugh,
um,
yeah.
and storytelling and stuff. So it's, it's a lot to figure out because every single part of our business is affected. But, I do firmly believe AI is yet to be able to synthesize a human connection or an idea that makes it that like universal. I always call them like,
Can you come back closer to the mic again?
yeah. They AI has yet to synthesize that sort of like human spark. I
Yeah.
call them like the insights that are like simple but inevitable, or surprising but inevitable, not simple, surprising but inevitable, right? Like you see it or you hear it. Like comedians are brilliant at this, right? Like a comedian, can talk, Jim Gaffigan can talk about hot pockets, or Jerry Seinfeld can talk about corn nuts, or whatever. And everybody knows what a corn nut is. When Jerry Seinfeld gets up there and is like, it's not a corn, it's not a nut. Like, what is it? Like, that's surprising, but it's inevitable. Like, of course, why didn't anybody say that? Like, that's such a great, and everybody laughs because that's like a human moment that we all share. We've had that thought in our head, and AI has yet to pull those out. So, you know, for now, I think creativity will be safe, but how we do creativity is going to be pretty different.
So interesting. I it seems like the relationship that brands have with their customers is even more important than ever. Like just the amount of trust that you have, the feeling connected to the brand all seems really important.
Yeah, I mean, branding has evolved so much. It's the day and age of one message that gets broadcast or just like hammered out to everybody is kind of over, right? Like you used to buy a TV spot and just put it on CBS and that was it, or you do Thursday night must see TV and that was everybody talked about it. Whereas now and through social and through the way your TV plays ads, like it's a customized feed. Like your algorithm is different than anybody else. So it's not even social media anymore, it's interest media. And so your algorithm is so finely tuned that you're going to stick inside your your little echo chamber, your little bubble, in a way that humanity's never existed before. And so, as brands and as marketers, it's probably not the best solution to only do mass one message, but we have to get in there and do these little micro messages or micro culture identifications and try to talk to them individually so that the robots, the algorithm, has a better chance of putting that up on your, for you page.
Mm.
So it, you know, it's changing so much, but then the way people then now in that echo chamber see that ad, they feel more personal. They feel more like there's a different relationship between an ad here than an ad you see on TV. And that's why we're seeing like D2C and influencers and stuff take off. I mean, influencers is just a testimonial. They've been around forever.
Yeah.
But suddenly now your TikTok is filled with just like buy now or oh, I just tried the greatest water. You gotta try it. And I mean, I've bought so much crap off of that, but like fully understanding that all you do is pay somebody to make that content, and that's all it is. They're not real testimonials, not a single one of them.
What would you say to young 20 whatever 22-year-old Dustin now coming up to Minnesota, wanting a job in career in advertising? What advice do you have for him now?
And that's tough. That's really tough. I mean, AI, we have a young designer right now that I've been basically saying like, you're young, you gotta embrace this AI, like the generative side of it and, be an expert.
I'm close to the microphone again.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Um, you gotta understand AI. You gotta get in there and start playing with the tools and understanding. Like that's first and foremost. I would tell them to, continue to be creative outside of your job. How do you find
Yeah.
and make things and fuel that spirit? Because if you rely solely on your job, you're gonna get burnt out. You're gonna get beat up. The thing you love is gonna turn into something that's just mundane every day. So, find those passions outside of work, continue to like work on that spirit, continue to work on new technology, fight for that. Um, career paths are different than they used to be. It used to be pretty linear. Now it can kind of bounce around. So like think about advertising, think about other stuff. Like where, you know, and that's why I think it's really important to step back and be like, what does success look like for me? And I think as a 20-year-old, that's probably pretty hard to define.
Yeah.
But as you start to get older, like, no, 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 like what do I really want out of my life? Like what does success look like? And then how do you start to sort of arc towards that? Not in a, I sure hope I have a Lexus in 5 years, but like, no, like community is important to me, or friends are important to me, or travel's important. So I have to figure out how to like, either pay for travel or get a job that has travel, like whatever. Like, but identifying those things early on will be really important because it's going to evolve and it's going to change.
Okay. I don't do this very often, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate in a rapid fire.
Oh, hell. All right, let's try it. Let's try it.
Let's try it. Let's try it. Okay, we're gonna start with an easy one. Okay, so you just mentioned fueling the passion outside of work. What do you do to fuel your creativity outside of work?
Oh man. I mean that's a whole nother podcast. That's a my rapid answers are just like I smoke a lot of meat. I got involved in smoked meats during the pandemic. I do a lot of art. Yeah, I have a felt fish and felt bird exhibit going up at the Minneapolis airport, gate F4 starting October 1st. So a lot of that type of art. And those are the two big ones. It's just like, there's been a lot of along the way, wrote a book, helped start an ice cream company, did a website with 190,000 followers. So like different entrepreneurial things along the way.
Can we mention the mice?
Mice, I've murdered a lot of mice. Uh, I had this is where it's just like, how do you find ways to be creative outside of work? And like, my brain just like is constantly, whatever problem I have, like you find an interesting way of doing it. So 3 or 4 years ago, for whatever reason, we have a little tiny crawl space underneath our kitchen, and it's really only like 8 feet by 12 feet and maybe 4 feet tall. And we just got hordes of mice in there. And so I was setting up traps and I was just catching dozens of them. And I was going around the whole house. I had exterminators out. I still can't figure out where they're getting in. But then I was like, I don't know, maybe we should gamify this. And at the time, Squid Games was really popular. The first season was out. So I made mouse games. And so I took the Squid Game logo and I modified it to mouse games. And I bought like one of those old 80s, or probably 60s Milton Bradley mousetrap games. And I modified it so that there were real live traps around there. And so the mice would climb up or they'd get in the bathtub and then they'd get snapped. And I'd come in with my mask and my red hood and remove it and put it in a black box. So it was like a mouse parody of Squid Games. And it was great. Like, and it got, you know, quite a bit of attention on Instagram and TikTok, but it was just kind of like how do I like this is happening? Can I do something out of it to make it kind of fun? Or like it was just one of those ideas in your head that doesn't take much to pull off. I did get 2 strikes on TikTok, and they're basically like the third one you will get your account removed or whatever. And I can't figure it out. Instagram doesn't mind. Instagram is like, sure, whatever, murder mice. But TikTok is someone on there just keeps reporting me for cruel content, even when I don't show it. But we've had a couple seasons now. We had a Vegas season where we, had like a roulette wheel,
Yeah.
and then we had a princess. We had the princess mouse, which was like the Princess Bride, where they had the what's it called? The rodents of unusual size in the fire forest, or what it was called. So when the mice come in, they look like they're the giants, rodents of unusual size in the fire forest. So,
I mean, that's just something these podcast listeners need to know. Okay, you're a super artistic creative. Do you have a favorite color?
ooh, no, no, I'm multicolored, for sure. Like everything is just. If I go to click to buy shoes or whatever, it's like multicolor. So like probably rainbow would be the answer.
Okay. I have to ask this question. What's something that you experienced in high school that most shaped who you are or that may have shaped partly who you are as a creative?
Ah, I, man. I mean I think you're right in the like the speech thing, hats off to, Linda Crandall and Cosmic-E, like that, in fueling the art and the idea of like, no, you've got a creative spirit. Like how do you kindle that? And the speech coach was really good at like inspiring confidence and, sort of like figuring out the strengths of like, oh, you have ideas and you have the ability to probably rally people. I mean, I tell this to my kids. I was like, look, the first time I did a speech, like, it was probably a freshman in speech competition, and it was I can't remember what category, extemporaneous or something like that. And I remember like just crying, like bawling, uh, when I was up there trying to speak because I had no idea how to do it. So it was like I was really bad at it as a freshman year, but slowly just worked at it and slowly like tried to figure out what it was and realized that it was something I could get better at. But in terms of, I tell this all the time to people, like I tell this to my girls all the time, as I was like, public speaking and being able to like articulate ideas is like the number one skill you could have anywhere. I mean, the business world, whatever, like you have to be able to articulate ideas and get people to follow along and come on your journey. So it doesn't matter what your career is or what your trajectory is, like that is critical. And everybody can get better at that. That is a trainable thing all day long. That is not an innate, there's nothing innate about, I mean, there's people that are a little more gregarious and people that are like extroverts that are driven by like, telling stories and stuff. But for the most part, like you can learn fundamentals of getting up and stringing together a story. So, uh, good leading question, but yeah, I'd definitely go with that
Yeah.
experience.
What's one principle that you live by as parents that help foster creativity in your kids?
I think they hear me say, I don't know. Um, because I think that the skill that they have to learn is like figuring it out or thinking of a different way of solving it, right? Because if I come across as having an answer all the time, it makes them think like they have to have an answer and they're inadequate when they don't. When creativity is really just like figuring something out, like I had no idea how to build a 5 foot felt bird when I started. And I was very clear with the girls, like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to work the Cricut machine. I don't know how to find, I don't know how to build the armature. Like there's nothing about this I know how to do. But I'm curious about it. So how might I? How might I figure out how to weld this? How might I figure out how to Cricut, and so showing them that process of adults don't know what they're doing, but you can have a skill of figuring it out and asking questions and asking for help and trying to make yourself better tomorrow than you are today.
Hmm. What's one of the coolest things you've done
With the kids or with me or with
with
just,
you, your life, whatever?
man, I don't
Coolest.
know. It hasn't.
I mean, you just mentioned one, Spike Lee.
Spike Lee was great. I hung out. I mean, the celebrity thing that, there's been some fun ones. Like I was working with Tim Gunn on a project and we were talking about wardrobe and he's like, just come over to my condo and pick out my clothes. And we all laughed, but I got a call from his agent the next day and he's like, Tim wants you to come over and pick out clothes. And I was like, I'm not picking out Tim Gunn's clothes. Like, what are you talking about? But we went there and had biscuits and tea and we hung out for a day and like, so like that's pretty wild. Still send him a Christmas card, text him occasionally, but like career-wise, there's like doing the Book of Spam was a ton of fun back in 2007. Atria published it internationally. So I was pulling over to the side of the road and calling Korea for talk shows and random stuff like that. So that was just another thing. Like I didn't know how to do a book, but got asked questions, got an agent, got Simon and Schuster to publish it, and figured it out. So that, from a personal standpoint, that was really fulfilling. You know, seeing the girls use their creativity is a lot of fun. Seeing them figure something out or make something that's truly like, oh, you're not following a pattern. That's like a really weird thought. Like that's super cool to see. So, um, yeah. Sometimes
Okay.
just a really good brisket is all that, like, that's
this
like
is
that's a
this,
highlight.
this is the last question, but it's very similar to the last one, but it's a little more specific. Was there a time that you were doing a shoot or working with a company or whatever, and you thought to yourself, "Whoa, my fifth grade self would be totally freaking out right now"?
It's probably not the greatest. This is a bad question to end on because I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm pretty good at trying to not like I don't know
Should I
what's
rephrase it?
yeah,
Should I find? Yeah,
because
let's
I
not.
don't I don't
We'll cut that out. That's all right.
I don't think there's like I've tried to really not worry about what's next or like think about what's next. Like so like I don't like every like
You don't think about what's past either.
yeah, like I'm this like yellow lab that just is kind of running. So like I don't know what my little kid self would yeah, that's a pretty Yeah, do you have a different ending question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do a different one. Okay.
How I could talk. Ask me like maybe this isn't a fun ending one or whatever. There, like you could ask about like what my creative leadership style is, or like
Sure.
is there
Yeah.
a muse like a creative muse for
Okay.
how I lead or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, last one. Do you have any like creative muse or and how you lead or work with people?
I that's a good question. I like to think of myself as like the greatest showman, right? Like I like this notion of like it's a Hugh Jackman, right? Like I'm this like leader that's at this circus.
Nice.
And there's just I got like the bearded lady over there. I've got, the lion tamer. I've got trapeze. Like all these really talented people around me, right? Like I can't do any of that. I'm not, I can't breathe fire, and I fully recognize that. But my job as a creative leader is to make sure like, hey, attention's over there. Like see that. Like look at how great their superpower is. Oh, okay, great. Look at this over there. And it's kind of trying to coordinate and move it around and sort of be that person that gets up in front and is like excited and has energy and can direct the energy. So, you know, he sings a little better than I am, but I think, looks and charisma were probably equal. So,
I can't believe how great of an example that is. Like that is so it. That is so you. And I mean, and I'm saying that from, experience a long time ago. So that's
yeah.
super cool. I love that.
Yep.
Okay. Dustin, you want to tell us about anything about what you're doing right now or links to anything that you want us to share?
Sure. I currently got all sorts of things. I'm currently executive creative director at Press Inspire up in Minneapolis. We are a employee-owned independent ad agency. So if you ever need any type of ads or anybody is looking for branding, check out pressinspire.com. And then yeah, the brand course I've been working on, it's kind of taking 25 years of this sort of brand building and like, working at these big agencies. I kind of realized 98% of what we do is copy paste or is rote.
Mm.
So, allowing so I went and made this template that are kind of these granimals fill in the blank, and it allows you as a small business or a not-for-profit who doesn't even know how to start to think about your brand to fill in the blank and end up with a business that's more aligned, that can make quicker decisions, that empowers their internal teams to make decisions that are aligned with the vision of the company. So that's 3dbrandsystem.com. Those are my two plugs, I guess.
Yeah. And I just have to say, I've been going through the 3D brand system, have done other branding things in the past. This one's perfect for where I'm at right now. And I think that I really care about brand voice and like even for myself as I'm looking forward into writing a book and doing more speaking again. Like what exactly am I trying to how am I trying to come off? Like what is me? Who is me? And I think that's always been a question for me. So anytime I come across something that's going to help me figure that out a little better, I'm super grateful. And I definitely feel like the 3D brand system helps tremendously with that. Yeah, it's
Oh,
been very
thank you. No, I
helpful.
appreciate it. No, good.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
goal for giving some big brand tools to, you know, smaller brands and people that are looking for it. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Dustin, I have one last question and it is this. What are your if you could give a challenge to somebody who really wants to help shape the future, what would you challenge us to do?
to shape the future, huh? Whew, just
Make a difference.
end on a light one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the
I
whole
think
yeah, go ahead.
I the best way I think we can all kind of shape the future is just to really ask better questions, right? Like what why is that person thinking what they're thinking? Why are they doing what they're doing? Like I don't think there's any black and white in this world. And so the more that we can train ourselves to, bridge that division and ask better questions, I think the better we're going to be able to, solve more complex problems or make more connections or just be more human. Because it's we're in a little bit too much of a divisive state where it's right or wrong when really it's there's gray that we have to learn to kind of live in.
Hmm. Yeah. The picture that came to my mind when you first said that was just to see the color.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
See the see the shades, see the
Yeah.
different, yeah, see the, yeah,
Not just black and white, you said.
yeah.
Dustin, this has been so great. Thank you so much for doing this. I mean, it's in some ways there were definitely some self-indulgent moments for me, but I am really grateful.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It's fun to catch up, and yeah, best of luck with the podcast, and let's be in touch.
Yeah.